Hey, and welcome back to JBC English Learning Academy. My name is Laura, and I'm here to guide you on your journey to clear, confident, and natural English. If you truly love Jesus, like the video, subscribe to the channel, keep watching the video believing in Jesus, you will learn something good, and comment to let us know what you are watching. Alright, take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin today's session. In this first chapter of our long journey together, I want you to imagine that you are waking up on a quiet morning, the kind of morning when the world feels soft and slow, and you can hear your own thoughts clearly. And you can feel your own hopes rising in your chest like a small warm light, a light that you almost forgot was there, and as you open your eyes, you remember that you want to change your life, you want to improve your English, you want to feel stronger every day. You want to feel proud of yourself again, and maybe you even whisper to yourself, "This time, I want to stay motivated." And that simple sentence becomes the first spark inside you, the beginning of a new story. A story that we will walk through together in this long and gentle English practice, because here at JBC English Learning Academy, we tell stories slowly and warmly, so you can hear every emotion, every detail, and every lesson in simple spoken English. And as you sit up from your bed in this quiet, imaginary morning, maybe you feel something familiar, something many of us feel, a small fear, a small worry, a small voice that says, "But what if I cannot stay motivated? What if I start strong and then stop again?" And I want you to know that this feeling is normal and it is part of the human story. And in this first section, we will walk into that feeling, not to avoid it, but to understand it. Because when we understand something, it becomes smaller, and when it becomes smaller, we can move past it with calm confidence. So imagine you stand up, stretch your arms gently, take one slow breath, and decide that today you will try again. And as you begin this quiet morning, the sunlight is still soft, and maybe you can smell tea or coffee in the kitchen, and everything feels peaceful, but inside your mind, there is a question rising. How do I keep this feeling? How do I stay motivated every day? And I want to tell you a story, a simple story about a person just like you, a person who dreams, who worries, who tries, who stops, who starts again, and who learns something important about motivation that changes their life. And as I tell you this story, listen slowly, listen gently, and let the English flow into you like a calm river, because this script is not just a story. It is a long listening journey to help you practice English naturally and to help you learn how to stay motivated in your real everyday life. So let's imagine this person. Maybe it is you or someone like you, someone who wakes up one morning and says, "I want to change," and that person feels excited at first. They feel strong. They feel ready, and maybe they start learning English or studying or exercising or working on a dream. And for a few days, everything goes well, everything feels new and bright, but then something happens. Maybe they get tired, maybe they get busy, maybe they have a stressful day, maybe someone says something discouraging, or maybe they simply lose the feeling, and suddenly the motivation disappears, like a small flame that gets covered by wind, and in that moment, the person feels disappointed. They feel confused, and they think, "Why does this always happen? Why can't I stay motivated every day?" And I want you to imagine that our character sits down one evening after a long day, and they look at their notebook or their English app or their exercise shoes or their unfinished project, and they feel distance between themselves and their goal, as if the goal has moved far away, and they whisper, "Maybe I'm just not a motivated person," but deep inside, a small voice, a quiet voice, still wants to try again, and this is where the real story begins. Because motivation is not something you are born with, it is something you learn, something you practice, just like English, and the character in our story begins to understand this on a slowly changing day. A day that starts like any other, but turns into something important, something meaningful, something that becomes the beginning of their transformation. On that special day, our character decides to take a short walk outside, maybe around their neighborhood or along a small path near their home, and as they walk, they look at the sky, at the trees, at the ground, at the people passing by. And they notice something simple but powerful. Everything in nature changes slowly, not suddenly, not all at once, but step by step, day by day, moment by moment, and they think to themselves, "Maybe I am trying to change too fast," and this thought feels surprising, almost like a new idea entering their mind, because until now, they believed that motivation meant excitement, passion, energy, and big, powerful feelings. But now they begin to understand something different, something calmer, something truer. That motivation is not a fire that burns forever. It is a small spark that must be protected, fed, and repeated again and again, like a gentle ritual. And as they continue to walk, they remember the times they quit, the times they stopped, the times they felt guilty or weak or frustrated, and they begin to see that the problem was not themselves, not their ability, not their intelligence, not their strength, but their understanding of motivation, because they thought motivation should stay high every day, like a bright flame. But in reality, motivation rises and falls like waves in the ocean, and the key is not to keep the waves high. The key is to keep moving whenever the waves fall, and this new idea, this simple realization, brings a soft warmth into their heart, a small peaceful feeling that says, "I don't have to be perfect. I just have to continue." And with this feeling, our character starts to breathe more calmly, and they start to understand that staying motivated every day is not about feeling strong every day. It is about staying connected to your purpose every day. Even on the days when you feel tired, even on the days you feel slow, even on the days you don't feel excited, but the question still remains, how do I actually do it? How do I stay motivated when I don't feel like it? And this question becomes the next part of our story. Imagine the character goes home, sits down at a quiet table, and opens a notebook, and instead of writing a long plan or difficult goals or unrealistic dreams, they do something different, something simple, something gentle. They write one sentence at the top of the page. Why do I want this? And when they look at that sentence, their mind becomes still, and slowly, softly, they begin to write an answer, not a perfect answer, not a big answer, but an honest one, something like, "I want to improve my English because I want to feel confident when I speak," or "I want to learn every day because I want to change my future," or "I want to grow because I am tired of stopping." And as they write, something deep inside shifts, something opens, something becomes clear, and they realize that the feeling of motivation does not come from outside. It comes from inside, from a deeper purpose, a deeper reason, a deeper desire, and this realization becomes their first step toward true daily motivation. But the story is not finished, because after the realization comes the challenge, and the challenge arrives the next morning, when the character wakes up feeling normal again, maybe a little tired, maybe a little busy, maybe not as inspired as yesterday. And this is the real test. Will they follow their purpose even when the feeling is not strong? And the answer comes slowly, quietly, like a small whisper inside their heart saying, just take one small step. And so they take a small step. Maybe they listen to a short English audio. Maybe they read one paragraph. Maybe they repeat one sentence. And even though it is small, it changes something inside them because that small step shows them that motivation does not come first. Action comes first and motivation follows. And this is the beginning of their transformation, the beginning of their new understanding, the beginning of a new daily rhythm. And as days pass, our character begins to feel something surprising. The more small steps they take, the easier it feels to continue, and the easier it feels to continue, the more motivated they naturally become, and this becomes a cycle, a positive cycle. A cycle that grows slowly but surely, like a plant growing towards sunlight, and they realize that motivation is not a spark you wait for, it is a spark you create, again and again, each day, each moment, each small action, and this understanding fills them with a calm confidence, a quiet strength, and they begin to trust themselves again, trust their process, trust their purpose, and trust that they can stay motivated in a simple, sustainable, natural way. So as this first section comes to a close, imagine our character sitting by their window one evening, looking at the warm light of the setting sun, feeling peaceful, feeling proud, feeling connected to their journey, and reflecting on everything they learned. That motivation is not a bright fire, it is a small spark. That change does not come from excitement, it comes from small, consistent steps. That the secret to staying motivated is not to feel strong every day, but to act with meaning every day, and most of all, that they are capable of staying motivated because motivation is not a gift, it is a simple daily practice, and they take a slow, deep breath, smile softly, and whisper to themselves, I can do this. And this quiet moment becomes their first true transformation, the beginning of their long journey, the beginning of your English practice, and the beginning of everything we will explore together in this long script. On the second morning of our long journey, I want you to imagine that our character wakes up again, but this time something feels a little different, something soft, something quiet, something almost hidden, like a small change in the wind. And when they open their eyes, the room looks the same, the sky looks the same, the world looks the same, but inside their heart, there is a new feeling, a gentle sense of possibility, a sense that maybe yesterday's lesson was not just an idea, maybe it was a seed that is beginning to take root, and as they sit up slowly, feeling the cool air on their skin and listening to the soft sounds of the morning, they remember the simple truth they discovered, that motivation does not begin with excitement. It begins with intention, and as soon as they remember this truth, they feel a small wave of calm confidence moving through them, and they whisper to themselves, today I will show up again, and this soft promise becomes the beginning of their new rhythm. They move through their small morning routine, maybe washing their face, maybe preparing a cup of tea, maybe opening a window to let in fresh air, and nothing special seems to happen. But inside their mind, inside their heart, something is happening, something slow but real, something that changes the direction of their life, because now they are choosing to act even without waiting for motivation, and this choice begins to open a new path in front of them. As they sit down at the table, they look at the notebook from yesterday, the page where they wrote their deeper reason, and when they read the words again, they feel connected to themselves in a way they did not feel before. And they slowly realize that motivation is not about feeling powerful. It is about remembering why you started, and this small memory gives them enough strength to take the next step. They begin their English practice gently, maybe repeating a few simple sentences, maybe listening to a short audio, maybe reading a small story, and even though it feels small, it also feels meaningful, because they are not doing it for perfection. They are doing it for consistency, and this new mindset makes everything feel lighter. But like every real story, the peaceful feeling does not last forever, because life always brings challenges, distractions, interruptions, and unexpected emotions, and later on this same day, our character feels the first test of their new understanding. Maybe when they receive a stressful message, or when someone asks them for help, or when their schedule becomes busy, or when their energy suddenly drops, and this moment feels familiar, because this is the moment when they usually give up, the moment when their old habits return, the moment when the feeling of motivation disappears. But this time something different happens. Instead of becoming angry with themselves, instead of feeling guilty, instead of feeling weak, they pause, breathe slowly, and observe the feeling with calm eyes, and they remind themselves of yesterday's realization that motivation rises and falls like waves, and that the goal is not to keep the waves high, but to keep moving even when they fall, and this small pause, this simple breath, becomes a powerful turning point. Instead of quitting, they take one small step, maybe a tiny one, maybe just reviewing one sentence, maybe just repeating one phrase, and even though it is small, it becomes a victory against the old pattern, a victory against their own doubt, a victory against the idea that motivation must always feel strong, and this small victory begins to grow inside them like a quiet flame. As the day continues, the character begins to notice something new about themselves, something they had not seen before. They are becoming someone who continues even when they do not feel perfect, someone who shows up even when they feel tired, someone who keeps moving even when the feeling fades, and this realization surprises them, because for many years, they believed they were not a motivated person, but now they understand that motivation is not a personality trait, it is a practice, a daily practice, and every time they choose action over emotion, the practice becomes stronger, and they begin to trust themselves more deeply. Later in the afternoon, they take another walk, just like yesterday, but this walk feels different, because now their mind is not full of questions, their mind is full of reflections, reflections about how small actions can create big changes, reflections about how slow steps can shape a new future, reflections about how gentle discipline can build confidence, and as they walk, they notice small details around them, the sound of leaves, the movement of light, the rhythm of footsteps, and these details help them see something important, that life is made of small moments, not big events, and motivation grows in small moments too, not in big explosions of excitement. When they return home, they sit quietly for a moment, maybe on their bed or on a chair by the window, and they reflect on the simple truth of this second day, that motivation grows when you feed it, not when you wait for it. And the best way to feed it is with small daily actions that connect you to your purpose. This reflection fills them with a warm sense of peace, a sense that they are slowly becoming the person they want to be, not suddenly, not perfectly, but steadily, and this steady growth begins to feel beautiful. As evening arrives, they open their notebook again and write a short sentence, something like, "I showed up again today," and these 4 simple words become a symbol of their transformation, because now they are not celebrating perfection. They're celebrating consistency, and this small shift changes everything. Before sleeping, they whisper to themselves, "If I can show up today, I can show up tomorrow," and with that quiet thought, they close their eyes, feeling calm, feeling grateful, feeling quietly strong, ready for the next day of their journey, ready for the next lesson, ready for the next step toward becoming someone who stays motivated every single day, not because motivation is easy, but because motivation is now a part of who they are becoming. On the 3rd morning of our long story, our character wakes up with a very different feeling, not excitement, not fear, not pressure, but something calm and steady, something that feels like the quiet middle of a long road. The place where the journey is no longer new and no longer frightening, but simply real, and as they open their eyes, they realize that they are beginning to settle into their new routine, beginning to understand that change happens slowly, beginning to accept that motivation is something built, not something discovered, and they breathe in gently, feeling the cool air of the morning, feeling the soft rhythm of their heartbeat, and feeling a small sense of pride inside their chest because they have shown up 2 days in a row, and for them, this is already a sign of transformation. They sit up, rub their eyes, and walk to the window, looking outside at the soft light rising over the world, and they think about how easy it is to stay motivated in the beginning, how easy it is to feel strong when everything feels new. But how difficult it becomes on days like this, the quiet middle days, when motivation is not loud, not exciting, not powerful, but gentle and almost invisible, and this is the moment when most people stop, not because they are weak, but because they think. Motivation should always feel strong, and our character stands there, looking out the window, realizing something they never understood before, that the quiet middle is the most important part of the journey, the part that builds discipline, the part that builds strength, the part that builds identity, and as they look deeper, they think to themselves, "If I can stay steady today, I can stay steady forever." They move to their table and open their notebook, not because they feel inspired, but because this has become their morning ritual, and rituals are stronger than emotions, stronger than moods, stronger than doubt, and as they look at the page, they ask themselves a new question, a question that appears softly in their mind. What does it mean to love the process? And they pause for a moment, thinking about it, feeling the weight and the simplicity of the question, and they start to realize that staying motivated every day is not about loving the results, it is about loving the small actions that lead to those results, loving the daily steps, loving the quiet moments of practice, loving the growth that comes slowly and silently. And this realization makes them smile, a small, gentle smile that rises without force, because suddenly they understand something deep, that discipline becomes easier when the process becomes meaningful. So they begin their English practice again, maybe reading a simple story out loud, maybe repeating slow sentences, maybe listening to a calm voice speaking English, and as they practice, they notice the rhythm of their breath, the movement of their mouth, the sound of their own voice, and they feel strangely peaceful, because they are no longer rushing, no longer worrying, no longer trying to be perfect. They are simply present, and this presence makes the practice feel almost like meditation. But of course, life always brings a challenge, especially on the quiet middle days, and later that same morning, something interrupts them, maybe a phone call, maybe a responsibility, maybe an unexpected problem. Something that pulls them away from their practice, something that tests their new habits, something that reminds them of the old version of themselves who would stop at the first sign of difficulty. They feel the pull of old habits, the familiar feeling of wanting to quit, the voice inside that says, "It's okay, you can skip today," and for a moment, they feel themselves slipping back into that old identity, the identity that waited for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect feeling before taking action, and they sit there quietly, feeling the tension between who they were and who they want to become. But then they take a slow breath, remembering the last 2 days, remembering the simple truth that small actions matter, remembering that consistency grows like a plant, and they ask themselves, what would the future version of me choose right now? And this question becomes their turning point. They return to their practice, not perfectly, not with full energy, not with excitement, but with commitment, with intention, with quiet strength, and even though the practice is short, even though it is simple, even though they are tired, they finish it. And when they close their notebook, they feel a wave of warmth inside, the warmth of self-respect, the warmth of knowing that they kept a promise to themselves. In the afternoon, they decide to take another walk, but today the walk feels different, because today they are not walking to think about motivation, they are walking to feel the world, to feel the air on their skin, to feel the rhythm of their steps, to feel the movement of life around them, and as they walk, they start to realize something important, that motivation grows when life feels meaningful, and life feels meaningful when we slow down enough to notice it, and they start noticing small details, the way sunlight reflects on windows, the way birds move from one branch to another, the way children laugh in the distance, the way a gentle wind touches their face, and all these small details remind them that life is not made of dramatic moments. It is made of simple ones, and if they can learn to find meaning in simple moments, they can learn to find motivation in simple actions. They stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and imagine their future self again, the version of them who practices English naturally, who speaks confidently, who feels strong and steady every day. And they realize that this future version is not created by one big action, but by hundreds of small ones, and this realization brings a soft determination into their heart, a determination that feels gentle but powerful, like a slow river that never stops moving. As evening approaches, our character returns home and sits in the quiet of their room, reflecting on the day, reflecting on the quiet middle, reflecting on how they almost stopped and how they chose to continue. And they begin to see that staying motivated every day is not about fighting yourself. It is about understanding yourself, understanding your patterns, your emotions, your habits, and learning to guide yourself gently toward the life you want. Even on the days when you feel slow, tired, or distracted. They open their notebook again and write a new sentence. Today I chose the new me, and as they look at the sentence, they feel a deep sense of gratitude, gratitude for the journey, gratitude for the small steps, gratitude for the chance to grow. And they close the notebook carefully, almost with love, because this notebook is becoming a record of their transformation. Before going to sleep, they sit on the edge of their bed and whisper, "Tomorrow, I will show up again, and this promise lands softly inside their heart, filling them with the quiet confidence of someone who is slowly but surely becoming the person they dream of being. On the fourth morning of our long journey, something very human happens, something that happens to every person who tries to change their life, because when our character opens their eyes, they do not feel calm, they do not feel strong, they do not feel steady. They feel a quiet heaviness inside their chest, the kind of heaviness that arrives without warning, like a soft fog that covers everything, and as they blink gently and look around the room, nothing is wrong, nothing is different, but something inside feels uncertain, and they cannot explain why, and this is the day of doubt, the day when motivation feels far away, the day when old habits whisper louder than new ones, the day when the past tries to pull you back, and as they sit up slowly, feeling their shoulders heavy and their breath a little slow, they think to themselves, "Why do I feel like this today?" And this question does not come with fear, but with confusion, because yesterday they felt strong, yesterday they felt committed, yesterday they felt like the new version of themselves was growing, and now, suddenly, everything feels difficult. They move through their morning quietly, almost mechanically, brushing their teeth, washing their face, making a warm drink, but their mind is not clear. It is filled with questions like, will I really continue? And what if I fail again? And what if I'm not strong enough? And these questions feel heavy, but they are not uncommon. They are part of the human journey. They are part of growth. They are part of change. And as they sit down at their table, looking at the notebook they have opened for 3 days, they feel a strange resistance, a feeling that pulls them away from the page, a feeling that makes them want to close the notebook and walk away, and they recognize this feeling, because it is the same feeling that stopped them many times in the past, the same feeling that made them quit, the same feeling that whispered, "You can try another day," and in the silence of the morning, they realize that this day is important. Maybe more important than the first day. Maybe more important than any other day, because today is the day they either return to the old pattern or break it forever. They take a slow breath, their shoulders still heavy, and they open the notebook anyway, not with excitement, not with energy, but with courage, the quiet kind of courage that does not shout or shine but whispers, "Try again." And they look at the sentence they wrote last night, the sentence that said, "Tomorrow I will show up again," and reading their own promise makes them pause, makes them feel something warm and soft under the doubt, something small but real, like a tiny light shining in the fog, and they begin to understand something important, that motivation is not proven on the easy days, it is proven on the doubtful days, and this simple thought gives them enough strength to begin their practice, even if their mind is not ready, even if their heart is not strong, even if every part of them wants to stop. They open their English materials and begin slowly, maybe repeating a short sentence, maybe listening to a simple audio, and at first, everything feels heavy, everything feels slow, everything feels like walking through thick mud, but as they continue, something begins to shift, not quickly, not dramatically, but gently, like a cloud slowly moving across the sky, and they begin to notice that even on a difficult day, even on a day of doubt, they can still take one small step, and that one small step reminds them of something powerful. Action creates clarity, action creates momentum, action creates identity, and by choosing action, they are choosing the new version of themselves again. But the day of doubt is not finished, because later, as they try to continue their day, their mind becomes loud again, filled with thoughts that say, maybe this is pointless, and maybe we'll give up later anyway, and maybe we're not improving fast enough. And these thoughts make them feel frustrated, and for a moment they sit down and place their hands on their face, feeling the pressure of doubt pressing against their forehead, and they whisper softly, "Why am I feeling like this?" But this time, instead of running from the feeling, they allow themselves to feel it, to sit with it, to breathe with it, and in that moment of honesty, they discover something surprising. Doubt is not a sign of failure. Doubt is a sign of growth. Because doubt appears when you are moving beyond your comfort zone, when you are stepping into new territory, when you are changing old patterns, and this realization calms them, softens them, makes them feel less alone in their struggle, because now they understand that doubt is not a stop sign. It is simply a reminder that they are human, and being human means feeling uncertain sometimes. In the afternoon, they go for a walk again, but today the walk feels heavier than the last few days, because today the world looks the same, but their mind feels cloudy, and as they move through the quiet streets, they try to focus on their steps, the rhythm of their feet on the ground, the sound of air moving through their nose, the way the world continues even when they feel slow. And as they pay attention to these simple details, something becomes clear. The world does not stop for doubt, and neither should they. They think about all the people they admire, all the people they see as strong, consistent, disciplined, and they suddenly wonder, do they feel doubt too? And the answer rises inside them slowly but surely. Yes, every person who grows has days of doubt. Every person who succeeds has moments of weakness. Every person who changes their life walks through days like this. And what makes them successful is not the absence of doubt, but the ability to continue despite doubt. And hearing this truth inside their own mind makes them feel a little more connected to humanity, a little less alone, a little more capable. As the sun begins to set, they return home with tired steps but a calmer heart, and they sit at their table again, and for the first time today, they feel something warm rising inside them, a small pride, a small respect for themselves. Because even though this day felt heavy and confusing, they still practiced, they still showed up, they still kept their promise, and this simple victory feels even bigger than the victories of the previous days. They open their notebook and write a new sentence. I stayed with myself even when it was hard, and these words make their eyes soften, because today they learn something deeper than motivation, deeper than discipline, deeper than routine. They learned how to support themselves, how to be patient with themselves, how to stay present with themselves even in moments of doubt. And this emotional strength becomes a turning point, a quiet transformation that shapes their identity in a new way. Before going to sleep, they whisper softly, "Tomorrow will be better," and even though they cannot see tomorrow, even though they cannot predict how they will feel, they trust that today's small victory will carry them forward, because now they understand something powerful. Staying motivated every day is not about never feeling doubt. It is about learning to walk through doubt with gentle determination. On the 5th morning of our long journey, something gentle but powerful begins to shift inside our character, because when they open their eyes, the heavy fog of yesterday has lifted, not completely, not dramatically, but enough for them to see the world with a softer, clearer light. And as they sit up slowly, stretching their arms and breathing in the cool morning air, They feel a quiet strength growing within them, a strength that comes not from excitement, not from energy, but from something deeper, resilience, the kind of resilience that is born only after you survive a day of doubt, a day when everything felt difficult, a day when motivation was silent, yet you continued anyway, and this new strength feels warm and steady, like a soft flame burning inside their chest, a flame that cannot be blown out easily now because it has learned how to survive wind. They walk to their table, look at their notebook, and instead of feeling resistance or heaviness, they feel a sense of connection, a sense of returning to a friend, a sense of returning to themselves, and they open the notebook gently. Reading the sentence they wrote last night, I stayed with myself even when it was hard, and these words make them smile, a small, honest smile, because now they understand something that only experience can teach, that true motivation does not come from easy days. True motivation is built on the difficult days you move through with patience and courage. They begin their English practice with a calm and steady rhythm, repeating sentences slowly, listening carefully, feeling the movement of each sound, each word, each phrase, and something surprising happens. The practice feels easier, almost lighter, almost natural. And they realize that the difficult day they survived has made today's practice more meaningful, because now they know they can continue even when they do not feel perfect. This realization becomes their turning point, the moment when motivation transforms from something fragile into something reliable, something they can count on, something they can build their life around, and as they continue practicing, they start to feel a new kind of confidence growing inside them, not the loud confidence of someone who feels strong, but the quiet confidence of someone who knows they will show up, no matter how they feel. They repeat another sentence, and another, and another, and the repetition feels soothing, almost like music, almost like a gentle rhythm that aligns their breath with their purpose, and they begin to enjoy the process, not because it is exciting, but because it feels like progress, real progress, the kind of progress that grows through small, consistent actions. Later in the morning, our character steps outside for their daily walk, but today the world feels different, not because the world has changed, but because they have changed, and as they walk through the familiar streets, they begin to see new meaning in the old scenery. Noticing the way light touches the walls of buildings, the way people move with their own dreams and struggles, the way life continues with both calm and chaos, and they feel grateful for the simple act of walking, grateful for the chance to slow down, grateful for the chance to understand themselves more deeply. They take a moment to remember where they started, the questions they had, the struggles they faced, the doubt that almost stopped them, and now, with each slow step, they feel themselves moving further away from their old identity and closer to the version of themselves they are becoming. They think about how many times in the past they tried to change quickly, only to give up when things felt uncomfortable, and they realize that change is not sudden, change is slow, change is quiet, change is built through days like yesterday and days like today. And this realization fills them with a strong sense of peace. But the turning point of this day comes in the afternoon, when something unexpected happens, something small but meaningful. While practicing English again, maybe repeating a phrase they have said many times before, they suddenly hear themselves more clearly, more confidently, more naturally, and for the first time, they notice improvement, real improvement, not imagined, not hoped for, but heard in their own voice, and this moment touches something deep inside them, something emotional, something almost tender, because improvement has always felt like a distant dream, a dream they wanted but doubted, and now they can hear it, feel it, touch it, and this small proof becomes a spark of inspiration, a spark that lights up their chest and reminds them why they started this journey in the first place. They pause, close their eyes, and smile softly, feeling a wave of gratitude for the journey, for the struggle, for the lessons, for themselves, and they think, maybe I really can change, and this thought becomes one of the most powerful thoughts they have ever had. Because belief is the root of all motivation, and now that they believe in their ability to grow, everything begins to feel possible. They continue practicing, not because they feel pressured, but because they feel inspired, and as the sun begins to lower in the sky, the warm golden light filling their room, they take a moment to reflect on the last 5 days, on the slow transformation happening inside them, on the way their mind has shifted, on the way their heart has opened, and they realize that staying motivated every day is not about chasing big moments. It is about learning to love the small ones. They sit down, open their notebook again, and write another sentence. I am growing even when it feels slow, and when they look at these words, they feel a deep sense of truth, because now they understand that slow growth is real growth. And real growth is the only kind that lasts. Before going to sleep, they sit quietly on their bed, letting the soft silence of the evening fill the room, and they place a hand on their chest, feeling their heartbeat, feeling the calm rhythm of their breath, feeling connected to themselves in a way they have never felt before, and they whisper, I am becoming the person I want to be. And this gentle statement becomes the seed of the next stage of their journey, the stage where motivation becomes not just an action, but a way of living. On the 6th morning of our long and gentle journey, something meaningful begins to unfold inside our character, something deeper than motivation, something softer than excitement, something stronger than discipline. And when they open their eyes, the room feels familiar yet different, as if the air carries a quiet message. You are not the same person you were a week ago. They sit up slowly, feeling the peaceful rhythm of the morning, and as they take their first breath, they notice that the heaviness of doubt is gone, the confusion is gone, and in its place is a steady warmth, a gentle trust in themselves, a sense that they are walking toward a new identity, step by step, moment by moment, choice by choice. They walk to their table, open their notebook without hesitation, and look at the sentence they wrote last night. I am becoming the person I want to be, and reading these words makes them feel a quiet joy, not loud, not dramatic, but calm and deep. The kind of joy that grows only when you honor your promises to yourself for many days in a row. They begin their English practice again, slowly repeating phrases, listening carefully, allowing the sounds of the language to flow through them like a gentle river, and for the first time, the practice does not feel like a task, does not feel like a responsibility, does not feel like a challenge. It feels like a natural part of their life, like brushing their teeth or drinking water or breathing, and this small shift tells them something important. The practice is no longer something they do. It is becoming part of who they are. Later in the morning, they take their usual walk, but today the world feels almost new, as if they are seeing it with different eyes, and they realize that when you change yourself, the world around you begins to change too, not because the world is different, but because your inner world is different. They walk slowly, noticing the shape of the trees, the sound of birds, the way the sunlight paints the ground, and they feel a deep sense of peace, because they know this journey is not just about English, not just about motivation, not just about habits. It is about becoming someone who lives with intention, someone who follows their purpose, someone who moves through life with both softness and strength. They pause for a moment, place a hand on their heart, and feel something steady there, something like a quiet promise. You can trust yourself now. And this trust feels like the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where they no longer question whether they can stay motivated because they have already proven it to themselves, not by being perfect, but by continuing through every emotion, through every obstacle, through every moment of doubt. When they return home, they sit down again with their notebook and begin to reflect on who they were before this journey started, someone who wanted to change, but did not know how, someone who thought motivation was a feeling, someone who waited for the right moment to begin, but now they see themselves differently, because now they understand that motivation is a habit, motivation is a rhythm, motivation is a relationship with yourself, and they feel grateful for every step that brought them here. They write another sentence in the notebook, something that feels true and full of meaning. Consistency is who I am now, and when they read this sentence, they feel a wave of quiet pride moving through them, because this identity is new, this identity is earned, this identity is real. In the afternoon, they sit down to practice English again, not because they have to, not because it is on their schedule, but because they want to feel the joy of improving, the joy of learning, the joy of growing, and as they repeat sentences, their voice sounds more natural, their rhythm more steady, their confidence more visible, and this moment reminds them of something beautiful. Improvement does not come in one big jump. It comes in small steps that slowly change your identity, and now they can hear that change in their own voice. They close their eyes for a moment, listening to the softness and clarity of their own words, and they feel proud, truly proud, not because they are perfect, but because they are becoming someone who shows up, someone who keeps going, someone who believes in themselves even when the feeling of motivation is quiet. As the sun begins to set, painting the sky with warm colors, they sit near the window and reflect on the journey so far, and they realize that the biggest lesson they have learned is not about English, not about motivation, not about habits. It is about identity, the identity of someone who takes action even on difficult days, the identity of someone who honors small steps, the identity of someone who trusts the process, and as they feel this truth settling inside their heart, they understand that staying motivated every day becomes easier when you stop trying to feel motivated and start becoming the kind of person who acts with purpose. They open their notebook one last time today and write a final sentence, a sentence that feels like a promise for the future. I am someone who continues, and these simple words feel powerful because they describe not what they hope to be, but who they have already become. Before they go to sleep, they lie down quietly, feeling the soft comfort of the night surrounding them, and they whisper gently into the quiet room, I trust myself now, and this whisper is not just a sentence, it is a transformation. The moment when the journey of motivation becomes the journey of identity, and the moment when they step fully into the person they were always meant to be. On the 7th morning of our long journey together, something new begins to rise inside our character, something they have never felt before in such a gentle and natural way, because when they open their eyes, they do not feel the struggle of the early days. They do not feel the confusion of the middle days, and they do not feel the heaviness of the day of doubt. Instead, they feel something smooth, something steady, something like a quiet river flowing through their mind and their heart. And as they sit up in bed, stretching their arms slowly, listening to the soft morning sounds, they realize that they have entered a new stage of their transformation, a stage that many people call the flow, but a flow that is not about speed or excitement or perfection. A flow that is simple and calm, a flow where their actions feel natural and their purpose feels clear, a flow that comes only after many days of small, honest steps. They walk to the table, open their notebook almost without thinking, and read the last sentence they wrote. I trust myself now, and those 4 simple words create a warm smile on their face, because they know it is true. They can feel it in the way their shoulders relax, in the way their breath moves smoothly, in the way their heart no longer beats with fear or doubt, but with a soft confidence that has been growing quietly day after day. They begin their English practice again, but today, it feels different. The sentences feel like music, the words feel like gentle waves. The practice feels like dancing slowly with the language rather than trying to control it, and as they listen to their own voice, they hear something new, a natural rhythm, a soft confidence, a clarity that they have been building step by step, and they feel proud, humble, grateful, and amazed at the same time, because they finally understand that consistency shapes ability, and ability shapes confidence, and confidence shapes identity. As the morning continues, they decide to take their daily walk, but today, the walk feels almost meditative, almost spiritual, because each step feels connected to their heart, each breath feels connected to their purpose, and they can feel the quiet flow guiding them forward, gently, smoothly, with patience and kindness. They look at the world around them, the trees, the sky, the small movements of life everywhere, and everything feels brighter, not because the world changed, but because their mind has opened, their perspective has changed, their inner world has become calm and present. And they begin to understand something powerful. When you live with intention, the world becomes clearer, and when the world becomes clearer, motivation becomes something automatic, something natural, something that grows from within instead of being forced from outside. They stop for a moment, close their eyes, and listen to the wind moving softly through the leaves, and in that peaceful moment, they feel deeply connected to themselves, to their journey, to their purpose, and they whisper softly, "This is who I am becoming." And those words make them feel grounded, strong, and alive. Later that afternoon, the character sits down again for another session of English practice, and this time, something surprising happens. They lose track of time. They become so absorbed in what they are doing, so focused, so calm, so connected to the activity itself, that the world around them seems to fade, and the only thing that exists is the sound of the language, the movement of their voice, the meaning of the words, the gentle rhythm of repetition, and this experience, this deep concentration, this feeling of being fully present, becomes their next transformation. They suddenly realize that motivation is no longer something they are chasing. It is something they are entering, something they are living, something they are flowing with, and this deep flow, this peaceful focus, becomes one of the most powerful moments of their journey. When they finally look up from their practice, they are surprised to see how much time has passed, surprised at how natural the learning felt, surprised at how deeply they enjoyed the process without even trying, and this realization fills their heart with gratitude. Because they know this kind of focus is possible only when you build consistency, when you trust yourself, when you stop fighting with your emotions and start moving with them. As the evening approaches, the warm light of the sunset fills the room with soft colors, and the character sits quietly with their notebook, reflecting on everything they experienced today, and they begin to understand something profound. That true transformation is not loud, it is quiet, not sudden, but gradual, not dramatic, but steady, and they realize that the days of doubt, the days of slow progress, the days of small victories, all led them to this moment where the practice feels natural, where motivation feels like part of their breath, where learning feels like living, and they write a new sentence in their notebook, one that feels honest and full of truth. I am flowing with my purpose now, and when they read these words, they feel a warm, calm joy spreading through them, because they know they have entered a new stage of their journey, a stage where they no longer walk with fear, no longer struggle with doubt, no longer push themselves with pressure, but walk with grace, patience, and trust. Before going to sleep, they sit quietly in the darkness of their room, listening to the silence, feeling their breath, feeling their heart, and they whisper softly to themselves, "This is the new me." And as they close their eyes, they feel the gentle flow of their new identity guiding them into sleep, ready for the next day, ready for the next step, ready for the next chapter of becoming someone who stays motivated every day through intention, consistency, and quiet inner strength. On the 7th morning of our long journey together, something new begins to rise inside our character, something they have never felt before in such a gentle and natural way, because when they open their eyes, they do not feel the struggle of the early days. They do not feel the confusion of the middle days, and they do not feel the heaviness of the day of doubt. Instead, they feel something smooth, something steady, something like a quiet river flowing through their mind and their heart, and as they sit up in bed, stretching their arms slowly, listening to the soft morning sounds, they realize that they have entered a new stage of their transformation, a stage that many people call the flow, but a flow that is not about speed or excitement or perfection. A flow that is simple and calm, a flow where their actions feel natural and their purpose feels clear, a flow that comes only after many days of small, honest steps. They walk to the table, open their notebook almost without thinking, and read the last sentence they wrote. I trust myself now, and those 4 simple words create a warm smile on their face, because they know it is true. They can feel it in the way their shoulders relax, in the way their breath moves smoothly, in the way their heart no longer beats with fear or doubt, but with a soft confidence that has been growing quietly day after day. They begin their English practice again, but today, it feels different. The sentences feel like music, the words feel like gentle waves, the practice feels like dancing slowly with the language rather than trying to control it, and as they listen to their own voice, they hear something new, a natural rhythm, a soft confidence, a clarity that they have been building step by step, and they feel proud, humble, grateful, and amazed at the same time, because they finally understand that consistency shapes ability, and ability shapes confidence, and confidence shapes identity. As the morning continues, they decide to take their daily walk, But today, the walk feels almost meditative, almost spiritual, because each step feels connected to their heart. Each breath feels connected to their purpose. And they can feel the quiet flow guiding them forward, gently, smoothly, with patience and kindness. They look at the world around them, the trees, the sky, the small movements of life everywhere, and everything feels brighter, not because the world changed, but because their mind has opened, their perspective has changed, their inner world has become calm and present. And they begin to understand something powerful. When you live with intention, the world becomes clearer. And when the world becomes clearer, motivation becomes something automatic, something natural, something that grows from within instead of being forced from outside. They stop for a moment, close their eyes, and listen to the wind moving softly through the leaves, and in that peaceful moment, they feel deeply connected to themselves, to their journey, to their purpose, and they whisper softly, "This is who I am becoming." And those words make them feel grounded, strong, and alive. Later that afternoon, the character sits down again for another session of English practice, and this time, something surprising happens. They lose track of time. They become so absorbed in what they are doing, so focused, so calm, so connected to the activity itself, that the world around them seems to fade, and the only thing that exists is the sound of the language, the movement of their voice, the meaning of the words, the gentle rhythm of repetition, and this experience, this deep concentration, this feeling of being fully present, becomes their next transformation. They suddenly realize that motivation is no longer something they are chasing. It is something they are entering, something they are living, something they are flowing with, and this deep flow, this peaceful focus, becomes one of the most powerful moments of their journey. When they finally look up from their practice, they are surprised to see how much time has passed, surprised at how natural the learning felt.